Hello, I'm Miss Lesensky, and I'm very excited to tell you about our new environmental science class. I will be teaching it. I used to teach IB Environmental Systems and Societies, but we are switching to this class, which will change it from a 2-year commitment to a 1-year class, which I noticed a lot of people try to fit this in their senior year anyway. So I thought it would be good to have a 1-year class. And without the requirements of IB, we really will be able to delve into the topics that the class decides on, the topics that I think are more interesting. We'll get to do a lot more hands-on and project-based things in this class. So I'm very excited about it. I'm going to tell you about the things that I have planned. I probably have planned too much, and as a class, we may need to whittle this down, and you can help me decide what are the most important things. But I envision starting with an introduction to environmental science, which includes learning about different environmental value systems around the world and why people place value on the environment for many different reasons. We will look at the idea of a circular economy. If you've ever seen The Story of Stuff, that's kind of a central idea here. We'll look at what sustainability is. We'll explore our ecological footprints, all as kind of an introduction. Then I want to get into water. We'll look at the water cycle on Earth. We'll look at water scarcity on our planet. Who around the world does not have access to clean water and why? There's the concepts of physical scarcity and economic scarcity, so we'll delve into that. Looking at a lot of kind of case studies around the world. This is a very globally minded class as we'll look at how environmental issues are impacting people all around the planet and what's being done about that. We'll also delve into where your water comes from here in Portland and do a field trip to the Bull Run Reservoir so that you can see that yourself. We will also talk about how climate change and economic development are impacting the water cycle. This whole class will be kind of through the lens of how humans are impacting all of these systems. We'll look at food systems, so how your own food choices impact the world, as well as much bigger picture things, food distribution, systems of fishing. We'll look at aquatic food systems and terrestrial food systems. We will do an owl pellet lab here. This is not the same owl pellet lab that you may have done in elementary or middle school. This is a high school version of the owl pellet lab where we'll be calculating the calories eaten by the owl, and we'll learn some things about trophic levels and ecology along the way. I'm hoping to get as many guest speakers and little mini field trips within the period as I can in this class. In the past, I've taken students to Safeway during a food systems unit in order to take a closer look at what your options are in the grocery store. Kind of interesting, as well as how they manage things like compost and extra food at the grocery store. We will get into climate change, so we'll learn about the greenhouse effect and sources of greenhouse gases. We'll look at the data. How do we know that the climate is changing, from ice data to bog data, all kinds of different things. We'll learn about what feedback loops are and how that impacts climate change, and what solutions are. We'll do some simulations in order to determine what good solutions for climate change might be. The thing with all of these things is there are lots of big problems, but there are also a lot of solutions that are already underway. So we will always end with, and what are we already doing about this? Otherwise it gets real depressing real fast. So we will try to not get too depressed. Then we'll do a bit of biodiversity and ecosystem work. We'll look at endangered species around the world and what techniques there are for conservation of these species. You'll design a conservation area. Then we've got pollution. We can look at air pollution and water pollution, things like smog and acid rain and what we can do about them, stormwater systems. We'll look at the currents of oceans, how that works globally, and how climate change could impact those things. We'll look at macroinvertebrates as an indicator species that can tell us about the health of an ecosystem, hopefully do a field trip at this point. We will dissect albatross boluses. So what this is just like an owl pellet, an albatross will also eject, it's called a bolus, it's like an owl pellet. And you can dissect it in order to see what they've been eating. So we'll do one of those when we get to this unit. And finally, we've got population growth. So we've got human population globally and what's happening to it. Some of the predictions that were made back in the 60s and 70s, I want to say, were pretty dire, and that has not come to be true. So we're going to look at how we make these predictions and how, as a country develops economically, how that changes its population growth and why. We'll look at carrying capacity as a concept in ecology and apply it to humans on our planet. So there's just a couple of things that I have in mind for this year. Really fascinating stuff. I think if you take this class, you will not need to ask, why do we need to learn this? That's a major goal of mine. I think it will be pretty clear. It all feels like really important issues that we need to be talking about and making changes on today. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm excited to be starting this class for the first time, but also drawing on a lot of classes that I've taught before in order to make this what I think will be the best class ever. So if you have any questions about it, please email me. My email is lisensky@pps.net. That's LISENSKY@pps.net. Thank you. And I hope to see you next year.